Now, it's with great pleasure that I introduce Aale Roos. Aale was named ITSMF Person of the Year in 2012 by ITSMF Finland. He has been an ITSM consultant from '89 after a career in practical IT service management. He set up his first help desk in the mid-'80s and has been an active player in the development of the help desk, service desk concept. His latest contribution is Service Desk 2.0, the future of the service desk. During a discussion on Service Desk 2.0, he wrote, "We all must unlearn ITIL," something that I'm a big fan of doing. Somehow that slogan got a life of its own, went viral, and has created many heated discussions as we go forward. I'd like you to give a very warm Australian welcome to Aale Roos.
Thank you. Hyvää huomenta. Seems that nobody understands Finnish here. So okay, let's start. Keep with English. So good morning from me. This is my first visit to Australia, and it has been quite wonderful. And I want to explain why I'm just wearing a T-shirt this morning. It's because my son's birthday is tomorrow. He will be 30, and I will be flying. And this is his successful startup company, the Flowdoc. It's a collaboration tool, which actually was acquired by a US company just a few months ago. But okay, let's go into Unlearning ITIL. This, as you heard, it was kind of slightly accidental that I ever wrote this piece. It was just a line in a discussion. And actually the funny thing was, I was a year ago speaking in Moscow, ITSM Moscow, something else. But then somebody came with a magazine to me, just like this, and said, "What do you mean by this?" And I realized that they had translated my piece into Russian without asking about me, but okay, it was ITSM international property, so they had the right to do it, I guess. So, my goal is to show you that ITIL really has some serious problems, which you need to be aware. And I do believe that it is actually a good idea to unlearn some ITIL stuff. I'm not saying that you have to throw everything away, but some parts of it. So let's go into... This is a little slow. Yeah, so something about my background. I did statistics for my first career. Then I went to IT, service management. I was appointed somewhere in the 80s as a customer service manager for a large IT service bureau, you know, mainframes, serving several companies, starting with some level of outsourcing. We didn't call it outsourcing, we called it facilities management. And at that time, I was my boss had read that there's such a thing as help desk, and he thought that we would need one, and he told set up a help desk, so nobody had any idea what it was. I went to a training in UK, got Malcolm Fry, David Radcliffe training me, and got the idea and set up one of the first help desks in Finland. And then I went into consulting. We met Ron Munns, very Colorado style in Breckenridge at the ski lift. And then we started cooperation with Ron Munns, and I set up a help desk institute, Nordic, in Finland. So I've been here for a while. I've been doing a lot of consulting and training in this area. Started the ITIL thing actually in Finland for the first open ITIL foundation ever done in Finland. So let's go to the history. What ITIL actually is. It's 80s. It was done in a mainframe period. The original IDs, which are still there, and we know it's British. At least from the Nordic point of view, Britain is a class society. We would do things differently. we wouldn't have a change manager who makes decisions alone. In Finland, it has to be, how you say it, people have to agree. Finland, Sweden, Norway are like that. More talk, less orders. And then ITIL has this public services background, which means that bureaucracy is their way of life, and that shows. And then it was always internal. So they didn't have customers or suppliers really in the first. They talked about users, and the idea of multi-vendor service provision is totally different. So, but it was really great in a way, because the picture kind of shows us how we were in the 80s in the world of IT service management. We didn't have many tools about it. We didn't have, concepts and word. So ITIL brought the idea of having processes, the idea of having services, and that was really new. I remember I was doing the same thing you have here, selecting the Service Desk of the Year type award. So I went, it was actually Bank of Finland who won that year, but I asked them, what kind of processes you are using? Okay, then management look at me and say, processes, who needs processes and things like this. And it took only, I think, about 3 years when they set out a bid to who would consult them in getting ISO 20000, which needs a lot of processes in place. So things changed. And so, yes, that was a good thing. And of course, for instance, that restoring service and permanent removal of the causes are two different things. I think it was a great idea. I think Rob England wrote somewhere that he still remembers how the light went up in his head when he got that thing. So, as I said, there are good things. But let's go into the problems. We got this V3. And, okay, I used this picture in London. I did these graphics originally for my Finnish presentation. I never did think that I would be showing an actual, Nazi V2 rocket in London as a picture for ITIL version 3. That was completely accidental. But yeah, we got this service life cycle and a lot of problems which came in the version 3. It was, it was a government project, very large, a short time, and it went like a lot of government projects do. It didn't go so well. So, the problems which really annoyed me was the strategy book. Strategy book put together a lot of ideas. It was kind of MBA in service marketing. And the ideas were not so new to me, because there is actually something called the Nordic School of Service Marketing. And the version 3 strategy book comes straight from that. All these warranty and utility are things that were invented there. A lot of the stuff comes directly from there. There was small mistakes, like there was actually 2 separate demand management processes. And then really major mistake, bringing a service life cycle with no business relationship management. I think that was really capital mistake. And then we had this crazy definition of incident. If you ever read the book, it has this long explanation what is an incident. And this is different from what incident had been so far. So is there anybody here who remembers the, okay, but you won't hear it, okay. But the old version 2 definition As incident was something out of normal business which causes or may cause an interruption or reduction of the quality of the service. And you can hear now that I have been an ITIL trainer because I can remember these things. But this is something different. Now, and this is actually contradicting itself, because first it says that incident is this, but then it says the incident management is something else. So this caused some confusion. And the confusion is still alive. This is a rather fresh tweet I happened to see. We have people arguing about what is incident, and it's completely understandable because ITIL has 3 different definitions of incident, and people don't actually know which version they are using. Some say that, yes, we are using version 3, and then you ask what is the definition of incident, and they give the version 2 definition. And anyways, there are no versions anymore of ITIL. Now there are editions, and you should be using 2011 edition if you want to be current. And more little problems. If you read the problem management book and operation book, it talks about proactive problem management. But when you finally hit the problem management part, then it says that, okay, proactive problem management is covered in the CSI book, Continual Service Improvement. Go there, it points proactive problem management is covered in the service operation book. So it kind of dropped in the middle. The books were full of illogical graphs that had arrows in the wrong ends. Very, very, very easy to explain people what this graph means, because it's all wrong. It's still, there are overlapping processes. An old ITIL process says that you will do this thing, but then there's a new process which also says that you will do this thing. The same thing is put on 2 different processes, and so on. So I could not understand why people accepted it so eagerly. And I got this picture, and it's not about either you. I got this from James Finister, who had this in his presentation about, tarot consultant looks from the cards, and you have rather impressive list of corporate customers, so which means people who use probably their company credit card to pay for some amusement. But I showed this picture also in my UK presentation, but I was told I must censor the names. The names of the companies could not be shown, but you can see it here. But yes, people are surprisingly willing to believe things when they are marketed well. So then we have this 2011 edition, which improved things. And if we look at the things what happened there, was the strategy book that was completely rewritten, and the silly examples of how you can solve the problem of an overloaded service desk by finding somewhere an identical service desk, which you can split your load to this identical service desk. That example comes from the world of call center management. And IT people should understand that there are not really identical service desks available. Demand management processes, one got away. Business relationship management came. Incident definition was cleaned. Proactive problem management came back. And it's good to be aware that there are 3 different problem managements. ITIL problem management, version 2, version 3, and 2011 edition, they are all different. And I'm saying here that the illogical graphs were removed and fixed, but somebody in London yelled that that's not true. They are still there. So some of them I haven't studied. And overlapping processes, I didn't see much improvement there. So, and this leads to real dangerous thing. Because if you look, the full ITIL from version 3 way of doing things. When you have a customer who needs something, until today, you know, the delivery of that new thing, new service, there are 9 processes. And actually there are 11, but the text comes already so small. There's business relationship management, of course, talking with customers. Okay, if it's a new service, it probably needs to be checked with the strategy. Then we have demand management, service portfolio, design coordination, service catalog management, service level management, transition planning, support, change management, and a couple of others. So, none of these actually does anything. They just make busy work. They don't create, they control, and they all have the power to stop. Yeah, they lost the word busy work there, but should be there. And this is learning number one. If you are doing all these things, stop immediately. Monday morning, go there and say, hey, let's not start doing all these processes. And why I'm putting Nokia here? You know, Nokia is a Finnish company. Did you know, by the way, that Angry Birds comes from Finland? Okay, has anybody played Clash of Clans? Wave your hand if you have. A few. That's a huge Finnish game success, by the way. It generates more revenue, one game from Supercell, than, was it 600 games on Apple devices from Electronic Arts. So it's one Finnish, very, very small startup making more money. But Nokia is not making money. Nokia was really the leader of this mobile phone thing. But you know what happened? The best story I've heard, the explanation of what went wrong with Nokia, was that they created so complicated process organization, kind of matrix process organization with several processes, that they became totally incapable of reacting to anything, small things like the iPhone. Because if they wanted to change something which has already been approved and which was moving through the organization, there were so many teams that would have needed to agree to that change. So that they were really locked into going what they were doing, and it was really bad for them. And I have another example. There's a guy in Finland who used to call himself ITIL guru, and you can guess we disagreed on really many things. But he got appointed in a high-level position in a quite old IT service company, which was basically serving one customer, the corporation, the owner. And he really got into ITIL, and he did many presentations on ITSM venues explaining how great this is, how ITIL is improving. Until one day, out of the blue, the management of that corporation informed that this company, their own IT company, will be terminated. They are creating a new joint venture with one IT service provider where they put all application management, but they cut all this infrastructure, all this ITSM part, and they outsourced it to another company. So they wanted to get rid of ITIL. That's at least my view of that, but didn't go so well for them. ITIL killed the company, and actually I was not surprised. So then another interesting thing. which I really don't like, and I don't think it's very useful, is the definition of service in ITIL. That service, you know, customer get value without ownership of specific costs and risk. That's outsourcing, that's renting. I mean, I have sometimes rented a boat on a lake. Finland is full of lakes and really, really beautiful, drinkable water, no people there, and you can spend weeks traveling on those lakes, rivers, canals, whatever. So it fits to that fits well to that boat thing. I don't have to worry about my point. There's actually a huge storm right now at home, so I don't have to worry about my boat, that is it secure there. And I don't have to pay for, you know, all our waters freeze in the winter, so all boats must come up. You can't leave them in the water. So this definition is something else, but it does not fit IT services. Internal IT, I mean, the company owns the IT. And what about failed projects? Can you put the costs and risks of major failure to your service provider? Not, of course. It's the customer who carries that. So Jan van Bon has a kind of simple definition of what is IT service he has, but you should read it. But basically, yes, it's hard to define. What IT does is service, but it's not so simple. I've been using this bridge and ferry example to help you understand this. So if you live on an island, it's really important that you can drive there to the mainland. And there are two possible ways to get to mainland. There might be a ferry. Finland we have 100,000 islands, 100,000 lakes. There are a lot of ferries in Finland. It doesn't make sense to build bridges everywhere. But if you think about bridge and a ferry, they provide the same value to get to the mainland. Actually, ferry is just it's a small part of a bridge which moves. And a bridge is a long ferry which stays in place. So they provide the same value, but if you look at the point of the ferry operator who is thinking about the life cycle of the ferry, and maybe he decides to buy a new ferry because there's so much more traffic. So he goes and puts $10 million, gets a new ferry, and then he hears that, okay, the government has decided to build a bridge here, so his business goes out. So what I'm trying to say is that business actually manages the service life cycle. It's not the IT managers. IT managers are doing what the ferry operator is doing. They are managing the ferry service and the ferry operation, but that is not exactly the same as the business service and business value. Business can get the value many ways. IT is one solution to it. And, well, then about best practice concept, I suppose many have seen this Dilbert thing. I mean, if you are doing best practices, you are doing basically what everybody else is doing, so you are mediocre. Don't make it sound bad. I like this Cinefin framework. Has anybody studied the Cinefin? Only a few knew. Okay, it's quite interesting little model of understanding things and situations. We have in the middle disorder. A disorder means that you don't know where you are, and actually that is a fairly common situation. But then starting here from simple. Simple means that you have something which you can see, categorize, and respond. And you can have best practices for that. Somebody calls the service desk and says, my laptop is broken, or I lost network connectivity, or something like that, where the service desk knows the solution, can apply it, has a process for it, and okay, that's best practice. But then things can be complicated. This is, by the way, the same thing that Rob England talks about standard case. It's very much close. I think it was a good idea from Rob. So complicated things means that you need to have an expert to solve them. And cases are different. And actually, a lot of the work every service desk does is cases. They are more complicated. The process doesn't really fit them. You can't enter all the information in your screen. You should have better tool for that. But many people have the problem. And what I get the answer when being talking about these people is that yes, we do actually most of our work outside the process. We just use the process for the simple things, and then we just, you know, feel something there. But it's not, the ticket doesn't show the true solution. And you shouldn't try to force these people, the experts, to use one single process or best practice. They will fight against it. But then we can move into, these are structured things, but then we move to the unstructured word, complex things. Complex things is where nobody actually knows what is going to happen. We have a beautiful example of complex situation in the Europe with the euro, our common currency. We have American experts saying that, okay, Greece will collapse in 3 months and Italy will follow and this will happen, and this, but it didn't happen. And this is where the politicians try to create something. They try to solve because they don't want things becoming chaotic. That would be the loss of euro. Suddenly everything going down. And then we have this, there is a gap, there's a cliff between simple and chaotic, and which is really dangerous. If you think that this is a simple thing, you can solve it in a simple way, but you are actually in a chaotic situation, really dangerous. So that's why the little curve there. So best practices work for simple situations, and as I think you heard many times during these couple of days already, that our IT world is less and less simple today. It's getting more complicated and more complex. More players, everything is getting more difficult. So I don't think that there are actually real best practices. And then I discussed this with many people actually, even during these days, and nearly everybody seems to agree, the people who are really into it, that the certification stream, the training system of ITIL is far from perfect. Think about, we have this complex training scheme where you can become an expert. I'm an expert, not master. Version 3 expert, yeah. But behind, there's no scientific theory there. Trainers used to speak, I heard many trainers saying the ITIL theory says, but it's not theory in the sense of scientific theory, because scientific theory needs a lot more. There's very little empirical evidence that ITIL works. My example of this guy who was going around ITSM conferences speaking about their success, which quickly turned into failure. Many stories about ITIL goes like this, that first it went really well, and then it didn't go so well. And then it kind of died. So there are some good ideas. It tells you some practices, and then there are lore stories. So UK started with ITIL. They've been doing it over 20 years. And I was speaking at the ITSM UK conference last December. 75 presentations were about ITIL, and so many incident problem discussions. I mean, if they haven't got it in 25 years, so my learning, I've been studying this for a while. As I told I'm a statistician, I do surveys just for fun. And I have a contact group of people who will answer my surveys. So we had not me, but another company did a thing called Process Days, and it was a huge success. 400 people came to that day. I was speaking there. So I got curious, why did they want to come there? And I asked why processes are interesting. And here you can see the result. 70% say that processes do not work and we need more information. And you know, we've been doing this 10 years, ITIL in Finland. So 53% they are useful and we want to learn more. So there is value in the processes, but it's hard to get them to work. And then I asked, how do your processes work? I say that they work somehow. That was 70%. And 30% said that they did work, but it's gone down. And then we have 1 in 4 saying that we have described processes, but they do not work. And I think this is kind of even optimistic, this working somehow. I think it's much closer to that not working. If you really went there and studied what they mean by the process working somehow. And then, this is the worst part. I asked which processes work. Service desk and 1 or 2 processes. You know, I started putting help desks in place and basically learned people to use a process to handle incidents, starting from 1992. Okay, thank you. So there were very few, 20% who said that they actually have many processes working. So it's mainly service desk. So 20 years of ITIL, processes fail, and ITIL trainers and consultants usually blame the IT people. They did it wrong. It was their fault. I'm saying that there's something in the framework too which doesn't work. And this is Finland, and that's a history of railway. The first one, 1862, was to a city called Hämeenlinna, and that took 4.5 hours. Today, it's 40 minutes. So it has been great improvement. You have to start somewhere. And by the way, I started my vacation this July by doing a 4-day bike trip up north. And the city of Hämeenlinna was my second stop. So it took me 2 days to get there. So compared to that, the 4 hours, it was huge improvement, because before that, the only way to move was by horse carriage or some boat trips or some boat routes there, but really slow traveling. So you need, ITIL is good for a start, but I think we should have better terminology. I mean, we have all these terms, and if you look at a failed disk, well, it's like for the customer, it can be catastrophe. Service desk, it's an incident. The service provider may see it as an event on their systems, and for the infra vendor who solves then, it's just one service request. The language is so, and one real major thing which you could take home is to understand that there are 2 different processes which many people try to fit into single incident management. And this is, something breaks down. You see that, okay, this light is out, put a new one. No customer involvement. That's fault management. Of course, it can be customer involvement, but it's actually then you're doing bad processes, because you should be able to fix faults before customers notice them. But then you have a customer who is unhappy. Customer has a problem, and you need to make the customer satisfied. And that is a different process. The fault can be such that, okay, you have 10 million customers, and this fault takes the services out from 1 million customers and all the services. So it's not much benefit in trying to connect these things. But then you have a customer who has a problem, and you need to solve the customer's problem, not fix the fault, to make the customer happy. So 2 different processes. And of course, when customers order something, that would be the service request. That's the 3rd thing. It's different. So I'm telling people like this: you have customer contacts, which are 3 basic types: service requests, they want something, they buy, or they have a problem, or they give you feedback. And this is customer service. This is not incident management. Let's leave incident management as fault management. It's a technical thing. Something is broken, you fix it. This is customer service. So, something to take home. Service life cycle, it's like 5-year plan of the Soviet Union. I did this presentation in Estonia, which used to be part of the Soviet Union 5-year planning, and they really enjoyed this one. Got a lot of laugh there. And I think that the most of the value, the best version of ITIL is actually version 2, because that has some central good ideas. So, forget this unclear ITIL terminology. Start doing customer service, fault management, and risk management. Problem-solving risk management, that's a problem. That's the so-called problem management. And you can find a lot of good information about fault management and risk management, because other people are doing it in other businesses. And of course, you can find a lot of good information on how to do customer service. And I would say that yes, you have to invent things. Innovate, improve. It has changed. Larger text, I went through this but didn't notice this. So innovate, improve, and the last one is be brave. Be brave. Do things. Don't think that the book knows. You test things, improve things, and go beyond ITIL. ITIL is the first step if you are totally in the bush and know nothing. But when you get ITIL, then move on. And never implement ITIL. That's not a good idea. I have some texts that are available in English, so you can find them from our website. There's a part called ITSM from the top of the world. I'm also doing this top of the world podcast. So the name comes from there. You know, Finland is somewhere there. We are hanging upside down. Finland is at the top of there. Okay, thank you.
That's very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Small token of our appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it again for Aale.